To look back on 2019 from late 2020 is to look back on a very different world. Christmas 2019 had been a time of celebration with our friends, colleagues and communities that we had worked with throughout the year. We sat down to plan for 2020 and we reflected on what had been an excellent year. June saw our friends from the Civil Defence, Defence Forces and Fire Service join us for Fight Night to raise funds for Hope D. A successful and enjoyable event. Neither Chief Superintendent Sutton nor Superintendent Oliver Henry ducked the challenge to box.
Graceful, free, radiant and glorious.
Once again we landed into Barrettstown for the Emergency Services Day, and having spent the morning hanging around with the campers, we headed back into Naas for the second annual Naas Community Faith. This event is jointly organised with Naas Rotary and sees all sorts of crack, ceol, music and sport on the streets of Naas.
What's in this world? What have you seen happening here? Here in this world, what have you been doing here? What's on your mind? What's in your heart? What have you got? And will we be brilliant or what? Will we be all dressed in sunlight? Brilliant or what? Will we be smiling under starlight?
Bhí Gwiltach beagán agus ceol chorm a lár an maile, bhí Gardaí ag dós ón freisin. Parallel with these more unusual events, members of An Garda Síochána across the county were engaged in crime prevention and detection, making our communities and our roads safer. As the parties and celebrations drew to a close, the serious business of planning for 2020 was well underway.
In drawing up our 2020 policing plan, a key priority for us was on partner initiatives with other groups and communities within the county so that we could develop and foster strong bonds of relationship and partnership which would have value to us as we try to address the complex policing issues which may emerge in the county during the year.
We also focus very much on social inclusion as a key priority within our planning as we work with groups such as SICAP, the Public Participation Network,
to promote social inclusion across groups and communities within the county.
January and February had gone pretty much as expected, and now we were in March and in the middle of our transition year programme. There were rumours coming from abroad that something was coming, but this is one of the most exciting weeks of our year and we were very much enjoying it.
Near sunlight, born to be warm, to be safe from.
Images from Italy and Spain filled us with horror. The pandemic had reached Ireland. Schools were to close. Advice was to change. We were to lock down, stay home, stay safe. Little did we realise that this was to become the start of a very complex conversation about the new pandemic and the new reality. How are we going to best serve our communities?
The unfolding events in other countries made it clear that it was only a matter of time before we in Ireland would face significant challenges from COVID-19. This was a worrying time for our colleagues as well, because like everybody else, we worry about the health of ourselves and our loved ones. We also had a twin focus to support the health and emergency services personnel who were at the forefront of efforts to deal with this terrible illness.
Being Kildare, of course, the story has to have an equine connection, and the infamous and anonymous Naas Ball put community policing in touch with local vet Kevin Corley. Kevin had a ventilator that he thought would be of some use to the hospital, and we were able to use our connections to put him in touch with George Little and the technical department, and they were thrilled to avail of a piece of equipment that was in short supply all over the world. All the while that we were dropping PPE, sweet treats, meals, and even radios for those that were isolating or cocooning, there was always a feeling that we wanted to do something more, that we could do something more.
Through our visible presence and the real conversations we had with people, we got to know our community's concerns and needs, which enabled us to be a valued part of that community response. We identified the difficulty our frontline hospitals were having As such, we sought to introduce some creativity and fun in our support for them.
When living to be living.
Hello folks, I'm Community Guard John Spillane from Kildare Station. I'm part of the Kildare Gardaí Shaved Eye Aware Week. I want to thank all of them.
Will we be graceful and free, radiant and glorious? Why not? What have you got? Will we be brilliant, brilliant or what? Born to be bright, to be near sunlight. Born to be warm, to
From the ridiculous to the sublime. In discussions with staff in the hospital, it was decided that the best way to spend the funds would be on a garden for staff to get some much needed downtime.
And will we be brilliant or what? Will we be all dressed in sunlight? Brilliant or what?
This is a great demonstration of our support for the staff here, and we're delighted that there's now something tangible remaining to show our support for them, and that maybe might help them get some relaxation during stressful working conditions.
Graceful and free. Will we be kind? Why not? What have we got? Will we be brilliant, brilliant or what?
Planting is shrubby, so the idea behind that is that it requires minimal maintenance. We haven't gone and filled the beds with herbaceous perennials and plant material that will require a lot of management and a lot of upkeep. The planting should tend itself, look after itself with minimal intervention. It's a real thrill for me, like I say, as a Kildare man, to be involved, and I'm delighted to have helped out in a tangible way.
The garden was, I suppose, developed from the fundraising and from the people of Kildare, but it was just that there was nowhere for staff to sit, nowhere to go when there were all the PPE gear. This area is a haven for them. It's a place where they can sit, it's a place where they can have something to eat, get the air through their body and just get back on track.
We also had to provide support for older persons and others whose vulnerabilities were particularly exposed because of COVID.
An issue that arose was the difficulty for people getting to and from hospital appointments, and we were lucky that a local garage fitted us out with a special screen in one of our vehicles to allow those who were cocooning to be transported in safety to and from their hospital appointments. This vehicle and the other community policing vehicles were to lead to some interesting encounters, but none more heartwarming than this encounter between the couple here and community guard Aidan McGuan.
It all started that I was pregnant with a twin pregnancy, a high-risk pregnancy,
during the COVID
pandemic, and by I think it was April, we were just in town and we're trying to find a company to insure our car because I had weekly appointments at the Coombe Hospital. We were not successful at anything, so we bumped into Officer Aidan, and we asked him if he was aware what we could do regarding car insurance, because we had to be commuting and we didn't want guards to stop us and get the car taken away. And it wasn't feasible for us to be taking taxis every week or twice a week to Dublin. So he was very friendly. He kept his 2 meters distance, and he said, can you please call me and text me at this number and I'll make sure to tell you what to do. We came back home and we texted him and he responded immediately, and he surprised us by that he actually took me to all my appointments
For many
to the
others, it was
Coombe
a time of
since
hardship.
I was
And
4 months
community policing
pregnant
were thrilled to
till
be
the
able to
day of
step
my
into the breach
delivery.
and offer some
He's the
assistance.
one who actually delivered my husband to the hospital.
The Godfather.
Yes, and we call him the Godfather. And these are the twins, twin Elias and twin Eileen. And I mean, after God's help, we couldn't have done it without Officer Jaden or the community guards here in Maynooth. They were helpful in every possible way. They took me to all my appointments. They made us feel very welcomed. We've only been in Maynooth for a year, and I haven't seen such hospitality and help from community guards anywhere elsewhere.
Thank you so much.
Well, there's absolutely no doubt that over the last 6 months, 2020 has brought nothing but an awful lot of hardship for an awful lot of families, and grief and sorrow and bereavement because of this pandemic, which has hit us all very deeply. Here in County Kildare, we got together with a number of business groups and local organisations within the community to try and make life a little bit easier for some of the more vulnerable people of our society. One of the initiatives that we got together and collaborated on was in relation to Meals on Wheels. A number of restaurants throughout the county, with the help of local business people, were able to provide hot meals on a daily basis, which were collected by ourselves and other volunteer organisations such as Tidy Towns committees, local action groups, and those meals were all delivered and distributed to vulnerable people in society who perhaps may not have had a hot meal, but because of the initiative that we all got together and came up with, we were able to provide that meal for them.
Sean O'Malley and Patricia Berry had another interesting story coming out of meal deliveries.
So we were delivering dinners to Anne for a while, and we discovered, I was talking to Emma Redmond down in St. Vincent's here in Athy, and Anne's husband is a patient up there since before COVID in February, and Anne would have gone up a couple of times a day to see him. And I suppose with COVID she wasn't able to get up for a long time, and when we called to sing happy birthday to Anne, she told us, she broke down crying, and she was delighted with it, and she told us,
happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday dear Anne, happy birthday to you.
And she told us that it was her birthday that day, and the following day they would have been married 50 years and they had never been apart. And I suppose she found it very tough not being able to go up to Vincent's to see her husband. So following day we arranged with Emma Redmond, one of the nurses in St. Vincent's, and I used my phone to ring a phone above in the ward, and we got Anne to FaceTime her husband, and I swear to God, there was a few moments, I think, over the whole thing, Trish, where we would have been very close to tears, but that was one where we were definitely close to tears.
Guard cried like a baby.
Yeah, okay. Yes, tears did appear. Yeah. But look, it's what came out of COVID. We worked down here as a team, and we worked very well together with all the local volunteers.
Mary Roach echoed the importance of this teamwork.
I just wanted to make a small comment just about the Community Garda Service, who has been great to work with. Often integrating into other services is one of my kind of things that happens, particularly with dealing with the community that I deal with, who are often very vulnerable older persons. One example would be where we've had, with the COVID crisis of most recent times, and we've had a gentleman who was wandering the streets, recently bereaved, in distress, and was called by the community garda, who recognised that this was more of an issue that needed to be sorted from a social thing. So I happened to be in the area, called out to see the gentleman myself, and then we were able to work with the community guards to actually set up a temporary service to make sure that this gentleman was safe at night until the HSE could get an established longer-term service. This is something that would be unseen and that would be often undocumented and goes under unnoticed, but it makes a huge difference to a person's life. The situation that happened could have been such a different outcome, and very grateful for the community guards. And I know the person is also very grateful, because they do often ring and tell me how appreciative they are of all of the efforts that were made by the HSE and the community guards.
Also at this time, our operational focus shifted dramatically from normal policing duties to a point where we had to focus on enforcing restrictions around movement, while also supporting the most vulnerable members of our community in adhering to those restrictions. It was at this time that we truly found the value of the partnerships and relationships which we had fostered over the previous years.
In some ways, life continued as normal, however. Roads policing continued with its work keeping the roads of our county safe. Drugs detections and drugs investigations were ongoing. Public safety matters were still of concern. And of course, crime prevention and detection was still at the core of our operation. We had much respected colleagues retire with socially distant farewells. June was to bring a stark reminder of the harsh realities of policing, and Ireland on Garda Síochána was to say an emotional farewell to Detective Carter Colm Horkin. Ar yesterday anam dealish.
Our diversity is part of who we are and what our community is. Through every interaction we learn, we do so together. I am reminded of the adage, it takes a community to rear a child. We are both the learning child and the coaching adult, but ultimately we are a community.
Despite the COVID restrictions, it was important that we continue to move forward with social inclusion. So this year, for the first time ever, we were thrilled to be able to fly the Pride flag at Naas Garda Station. Garda Lane Byrne tells us more on the day.
Just for some visual representation there and invite people over, obviously maintaining the social distance, and just show people that just because we can't get out and march together, we can still come together in some way.
The more eagle-eyed amongst you will have noted the green straps holding up our flagpole. It was part of the story that morning. We realised that we had only one flagpole at the very last minute, and the national flag would have to fly. So at 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning, we set out to source and install a new flagpole. As you can see from the photographs and footage of the day, we managed to do that. This was in no small part due to the assistance of Naas Scouts. They lived up to their motto, Be Olive. They certainly were prepared. Flagpole installed, Pride flag proudly flying. It was back to work and the normal duties of policing. Of course, there's nothing normal about policing during a time of COVID. Sean and Patricia tell us about one of their adventures.
Involved with a good few things locally. I suppose we'll start off with Entertain Us at High.
Yeah, the Entertain Us High page turned out very, very successful. When we started it off at the beginning, it was just for people sitting at home. People were lonely, people just wanted something to do. So we set up the page just in relation to getting them to sing, tell a yarn, do a dance, whatever that would entertain the people. We were hoping we'd get 500 people on it at the time, and even at that we thought we were kind of just, that was living on a wing and a prayer at that time. However, it just grew from strength to strength, day by day. It just got bigger and bigger. Now at the moment we have 7,100 people on it, and they are from all over the world.
This additional need to reach out is identified by Superintendent Henry.
The pandemic had now meant that many who were previously included were now excluded.
As my ma would say, it wasn't off the grass they licked it. This style of community policing had been in Kildare for a number of years, but COVID had put a focus on it.
While I'm here, I want to thank Trish for all the work she's done. She's unbelievable. She runs it high. She's my sergeant, but don't tell my sergeant that. He'll be watching this now on Wednesday.
John is right when he suggests we don't work for the superintendent, that we work for Patricia Berry or Denise Croak of Older Voices or the Leader Partnership. We work for our communities, and I suppose COVID has taught us a couple of lessons. First and foremost is we can't achieve anything without the support of the communities within which we serve, our partners, community groups, state bodies, everybody who contributes. This has been a joint effort, and these have been just a selection of some of the very many stories that happened right throughout the county through this very troubling and worrying time. As we go forward, the lesson learned is one that social inclusion is important, that we have to set out and identify members of the community that need our support, perhaps just at that particular time in their journey. By being conscious of social exclusion, by being consciously centred on the community as our focus, we offer a better policing service. We find ourselves able to contribute to making Kildare a better place to live in for everybody in our community. Thanks for your time.